Hello, and welcome to the Physical Preparation Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Robertson, and believe it or not, my friend, this is episode 500. So, my working title is 10 Years of Lessons About Training, Life, and Podcasting. That makes it sound way more important than it probably is. I've been procrastinating. I'm just going to be honest. I was going to talk about this later. I've been procrastinating on this episode for good reason. Like, I feel, man, 500 episodes. It's absolutely wild to think that I've been podcasting for that long. And there's like a little bit of pressure, I think, associated with that. Like, I want this to be like this amazing episode and hard hitting and life changing. And let's be honest, man, it's just not. I feel like it's kind of like birthdays, you know? After a while, you have enough birthdays. It's like, all right, yeah, it's cool, but it's also just another day. And with that being said, bruh, it has been a week. Like, it has been a week. Still have like half my hoopers here and in town, which is really weird for this time of year. Most of them are generally off, already in training camp or already playing games. And just the way the off season is shaking out, I still got way more here than usual. They're kind of on their way to leaving, but still like full client schedule. On top of that, Kendall has had all the things going on personally. She has soccer practice, she has soccer games. There's other games and activities that she wants to do, soccer training, which is different from soccer games and practice. And then she's had like these before school activities. So, like, if I could show you a screen capture of this week, it's absolutely filled from like 7 a.m. to 7 or 8 p.m. So lots going on. But then this is also the time of year where mentally I start to shift, because I know, hey, most of my people are starting to leave town. My coaching schedule and agenda starts to back off a little bit, and therefore I can start to shift gears. So I booked like 5 podcasts this week, including this one. So I've recorded 4 of them. Joel was very kind, Jameson. I just told him, dude, things are so bananas right now. Let's push this back a week, just so I can have a little breathing room. And I wanted to have plenty of time to record this show. But yeah, I'm trying to think. I had Joel Smith recorded, Brady Howe I recorded last week, Christina Chu, Erica Mulholland. Like, we've got some amazing shows coming up. So obviously I'm still excited about the show. But man, it's another layer to the week, right? Because I got to do my homework. I got to go in and figure out, hey, what is the theme of this show going to be about? What are we going to really dive into? What are topics that I'm interested in that I think will also interest you? So, just extra work this week. And then you stack on top of that, hey, I'm doing this mobility masterclass in a couple weeks. So I've got to market and promote that. I've got to create that content. And a lot of times it's not just the PowerPoint, but it's the supporting materials. So, hey, let's create the PowerPoint now. Oh, there's, specific videos or pictures I need to take. So getting that ready. The Montana workshop, believe it or not, is only like 5 weeks away, which is really mind blowing, because I feel like I've been talking about this forever now, but man, that's 4 or 5 weeks out. So yeah, there's a lot going on, my friend. So if you are an online client and you're waiting for a response from me on Train Heroic, I apologize. Things will be back to normal after this week. If you're sitting on an email from me, I promise I will get back to you soon. There's a lot going on, but most importantly, we're here right now to celebrate a 500th episode. And man, I'm really excited. I think we're going to take like a little journey today. We're going to talk about my podcasting journey. We're going to give you some of the stats and just like background on the show, because I think that's kind of fun and interesting. And then we're going to wrap up with some really, I think, important life lessons that I've learned over the last 10 years. And maybe, when we hit 1,000, or maybe when I turn 50, we'll do one of those really like in-depth, hard-hitting, life-changing episodes. But for today, I'd rather just kind of like, hey, let's keep this casual, let's enjoy it, and let's have some fun. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we will dive into the starting point of all this, which is my podcast journey. Okay, so let's talk about this podcast journey, shall we? Because, I think it was probably 2014. I decided, I think I'm going to start a podcast again. Now, if you are new here, you may not even know this. I actually had a podcast before this called In the Trenches Fitness. I think we probably did 40 or 50 episodes. Oh, man, I don't even remember how I recorded that at this point in time. I'll have to go back and try and find those. I do have them put somewhere on my computer, so maybe sometime I can put them in like a Dropbox folder and you can download them and check those out, because I mean, that would be instructional in and of itself, is just how I brought that to life. But once we had kids and things got busy, I just decided, look, I'm not consistent about this. I wasn't really super passionate about it at that point in time. It was fun, but it wasn't something I was fully committed to. And so that's, 2015 was when I realized, look, like I want to do this. It had been a little while. The kids were at a point now where things were a little bit more steady and free flowing in life. So I was like, hey, I think I want to do this, but I wasn't sure for how long. So kind of my initial thought was, hey, I'm just going to do like 50. Maybe I'll do 100 episodes. There's a shelf life on it, right? I thought, no way am I going to be one of these people that podcast for something crazy like 500 shows. So, I hit 50 and I was like, no, like this is good. I can get 100, right? And so I got to 100 and I was like, I feel like I'm just kind of scratching the surface. Like I feel like my interviewing skills are getting a little bit better. I keep finding like really great people to interview. And the best part about it for me was like a lot of times these are people that maybe you would have to pay to do a consulting session with, or people that I have, vested interest in their specific niche or their specific specialty. It's like, man, this is cool. Like I get to like nerd out on this myself, learn about it, and then I can go ask this person and dive even deeper, right? And I can get context behind some of their answers. So what I started doing was say every 50, because 50 is about a year, to 100 episodes, I would renew the contract, so to speak, right? So my contract to you, my pledge to you is like, hey, I'm going to do another 100 of these because I'm still enjoying it. It's still fun. And I feel like it's still something that creates value and puts value into the world. So another thought that might be interesting to you, because a lot of people don't know kind of the background behind some of this, is when I started, one of the things that was most important to me personally was not making it just the cool kids lunch table. And so I do see that a lot now with these podcasts where they just go find the most famous person, right? We're going to take the most famous person or the most popular person or the person with the most Instagram followers, TikTok followers, YouTube subs. And that's who they're going to interview. And it's all just this cycle of, hey, I'm just going to build the biggest like machine. And look, there is an element of playing the game, right? Like I don't want to create this amazing podcast with these world-class guests and then ultimately like 2 people listen, right? Like that's not satisfying for me. And ultimately it's not doing the person whose time I'm taking, right? So if I'm interviewing somebody, it's not doing justice to their time. And so my goal and my thought process was, look, like those first 50, especially those first 30 to 50 episodes, I'm going after like big names, right? I wanted Nick Winkelman. I wanted Brett Bartholomew, Lori Lindsay. Like I went after big people, big names, people that were very well known in the industry. But then this was always the thought process in the back of my mind was, hey, once I have those people, now I want to find those hidden gems. I want to find those people like, hey, here's a name if you haven't heard him, Steve Barrett. I believe he's still at University of Indianapolis. This guy is an absolute savage. I mean, you don't hear about him because that guy's working nonstop. So those were the types of people I wanted to try and find, like the people that, hey, maybe they're not on social all the time. Yeah, they're not posting to their IG reels and their TikTok 24/7, but man, they're doing great work. And those are the types of people I wanted to bring in. So I feel like I've done a good job of that, right? And I've tried to find this really eclectic blend for many, many years. I didn't do anything about business. It was all just coaches, trainers, and rehab. Well, also understand that, hey, a lot of the people that listen to me know that I run an online business. They know I've also had an offline business for 17 years as well. So my goal has been over these years to create this really eclectic show that has a lot of different people featured, a lot of different specialties. But one of the things that I've always tried to do, and I've tried to kind of circle back on that really in the last couple weeks, and I think you're going to see this trend going forward. There is a time where I feel like I've gotten too bland or a little too vanilla or a little too broad in the shows. And so what I've tried to do then is refocus and niche every episode back down. So here's what I mean by that. Instead of getting somebody on and we're just, shooting the breeze about 10 different topics. If I'm going to bring Erica Mulholland on, who I just had on this week, we're going to talk about training female soccer players, mostly teenage female soccer players. So if you're listening to this and you don't train that demographic or you don't have girls that age, it's probably not of interest to you. And that's okay, right? Because not every show is going to be for you. But if you train female teenage soccer players, or you have a daughter that's of that age, which I do, that show's really intriguing. Like, I'm listening to that show. Another great example, Christina Chu, who I just interviewed yesterday. Amazing. This girl is so smart. I love her thought process. She's just super easy to talk to and has great insights. We're talking about supplements. So if supplements are not on your radar, you're not going to listen to that show. Again, that's okay. But anybody that's interested in supplements, right? They're thinking about maybe taking creatine. They want to know what kind of her taboo supplement is. It's a little teaser. You're welcome for that one. But like her third kind of taboo supplement that she talks a little bit about. Why is that on her list? Dosing for different supplements, right? Hot supplements in the media or in the market that maybe she doesn't like. So that's kind of the thought process here. And I actually stole this from Tim Ferriss. I would love to say that I could take credit for this, but Tim Ferriss is an OG in this space, and he's got arguably one of the top 3 podcasts of all time. But that was his thought process, because he's got such an eclectic mix of people that come onto his show. He's like, I can't cater to everybody all the time. Nobody will be interested. So his goal is that 10% of his audience, whenever they listen to a show, they're like, this is the show I need to listen to. And the other 90% either doesn't listen, or they kind of listen passively, but they know this isn't necessarily for me. So that's kind of where I've kind of come back to with all this, is instead of being general, we're going to laser in on one topic. Joel Smith was on this week. We talk about jumping. It's just an hour of talking about jumping, 2-leg jumps, 1-leg jumps, the difference between the two, the mistakes you see in each. So as you can tell, I'm still excited about this. And I sometimes I just need to zoom out and reset and reframe kind of the goals for the show. But I'm really excited about the next couple months, because I think we've got some really cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Another part of the journey that you may or may not know, I had no sponsors for the first 350 shows. And I feel kind of dumb for waiting that long to do this, because I had many people that were like, hey, we'd love to throw you money. I've got random people all the time. Like, if you saw my spam or junk folder, it's just constantly now people pitching me their small business loans, business line of credits. But so many people that are like, hey, we would love to sponsor a show. We would love to sponsor a guest blog on your site. We want to pitch our person to come on your show. Like, it's really ridiculous. But yeah, it took me a while to try and get to this point where I was okay with sponsors. And we'll talk more about the sponsors that I actually have now and why I chose them here in just a little bit. But yeah, it's been something that I wanted to do the right way before I added it. Like, every step of the way, my thought process has been about, if I were the consumer of the show, like, I'm not the producer, I'm not the person that's got the emotional investment in it, I'm finding the people, creating it, doing all that. If I'm a consumer of this show, what kind of show would I like? And so for me, it's always been about trying to be authentic, trying to be real, trying to be educational. And for me, it kind of takes me out of the element or out of the moment when there's some kind of just scummy plug in there, right? So yeah, I do have sponsors now, but I feel like they are people that are 100% aligned with my brand. They're aligned with my mission, and they're things that I use. I think that's the most important thing. So we'll give them a shout out here in a little bit. Hawken got to rock their hat today. But yeah, definitely excited about the sponsors that I do have now, but that's not something that I wanted to do right out of the gate. And this is something I still get people that are asking about this. Like, oh, I want to start a podcast. I'm going to have sponsors. I'm like, yo, hold up, man. Hold up. Don't even think about sponsors yet. Talk to me after you've created 50 to 100 really good episodes first. Start there. And if you see some success and you love it and you're making an impact in the community or in the podcasting space, then start to think about that. Not something you have to wait till episode 100, but show there's some proof there, right? Give me proof of concept first before you get into that. Another thing that may be interesting to note is that when we started, I did absolutely everything. Like, I still remember to the day going in, pulling up to the Apple store, buying maybe not the top of the line MacBook Pro, but I bought a MacBook Pro and I did all the things. I recorded on Skype when Skype was a thing, and then eventually moved to Zoom. I edited the show in GarageBand. So I basically did tutorials, did a lesson with one of the Apple experts, and anything I couldn't figure out from them in that hour, I learned on YouTube. I made my own show notes. Like literally, I did everything in this show, from who do I want to interview, getting them booked, recording the show, editing the show. I mean, other than Buddy Morris, that's a funny story. I'll tell you about that one here in a little bit. But man, I did everything because I didn't have funds. I wasn't going to spend extra money on it, especially initially. Plus, I think there's inherent value when you're starting something new and learning how to do it yourself, right? That's not to mean you're going to do it yourself forever, but you need to learn how to do it. It's like marketing. I think one of the most valuable things you can do as a trainer or coach is actually learn marketing. And that's not to say you have to do your own marketing forever, but once you kind of know like what works, how to write sales copy, things of that nature, now when you go and hire somebody else, you know who actually knows what they're doing and who doesn't. So it was probably around episode 100, 150. I started to offload that. I was like, man, this is just becoming tedious. I was very, very busy at that point in time because I'm thinking, dude, at that point, I'm running iFast. I'm running RTS. I was still the Indy 11 strength coach at that point in time. I had little kids. I was coaching them in every sport imaginable and trying to be, there for them and be a good husband and father and all that. So it was around 100, 150. I offloaded that. Had a great experience at the start. If you want some tea, kind of the downside to that relationship came. I was super happy with the group and the company that I was using at the time. And I don't know if somebody else took over, something definitely changed. And it was very strange because in the same week, Eric Cressy and Joel Jameson both reached out to me and they said, hey, we're going to start a podcast. Who do you use to do all of your back end stuff, right? Like who produces your show, does your show notes and all that. I said, man, I can't tell you enough good things about these guys. They're great. I record the show. Literally, that's it. When I get it back, I've got show notes, everything. I copy, I paste into, my WordPress on my website, and boom, it's done. I loved it. And I'm just going to give you all the details here because I think at the time I was paying maybe like $150 for the production of the show, which I didn't think was outrageous, and maybe $50 for show notes. So just so you know, $200 an episode of cost just for the production and the back end stuff. And I love the dog next door. Always loves to come out whenever I'm recording. Anyway, so okay, let's say it's $200 all in per episode. Well, they go to Joel and Eric and legitimately quote about 2.5 times that rate. And they came back to me and they're like, is this really what you pay per episode? I'm like, absolutely not. Call them on it. And they're like, oh yeah, well, this is actually what you should be paying. And I'm like, no, you're like price gouging two of my favorite people in the world. Like, why would you do that? Long story short, we do not work together anymore because I really didn't like how they did business. So, sometimes these things happen, things that I don't normally talk about on air or kind of give you the insight to, but man, this thing can be stressful, right? Like getting people to commit to time, getting people to, act in a certain way on the show. But man, that was something that really threw me through a loop. But, I'm also a believer, that ever the optimist, that everything happens for a reason. And so Paul Roughton has done so many great things for me over the years. He's done all kinds of videos for me. You know him as the guy that helped me create Complete Coach Cert. Basically, all of my most recent products. He does the videos, the editing. He makes everything look amazing. And now Paul is in charge of the podcast. So Paul, thank you so much, my friend. I would not be where I am without you. You make my life so simple, and I appreciate you more than you know. So everybody, if you see this, give a shout out to Paul. He is the best, and he is the real brains behind this operation because when I say something dumb, he can edit it out. He's good with all the filters. He cleans everything up, and he just makes a great finished product, does all the thumbnails. So shout out to Paul, man. I really appreciate you, my friend. But one of the coolest things that happened in this whole evolution, instead of having all of these different services, right? Because again, remember, it's like Zoom to record it. Then I got the file. But sometimes with Zoom, if you've ever been on a Zoom call where your connection is great and the other person's glitchy, well, it's one thing if you're just in a meeting and they've got glitch on the other end, but when you're recording a show and it's super glitchy, it's not good. Like there's no way to salvage that. And so this new piece of software that I'm using now called Riverside, if you've never used it and you want to record a podcast, just start there. Trust me. Just trust me. Start there. Riverside's amazing because it records on both ends. It puts all the files together. So even if it's glitchy when you're listening to the other person talk, it's recording on their end. So again, probably a little bit more technical than you would care to hear about, but man, it has made such a huge difference in my life because now I know I've got good audio and video on my end, good audio and video on their end. Means every week you got a high quality podcast, and it's just the best deal. And now, dude, the AI has really made my life easy. I don't use it exclusively, but it gets me started with show notes, quotes, all of the stuff. Like if you go back, and I'll link Lori Lindsay's first episode. If you go back and you look at what that looked like versus how it looks now, and all the extra like bells and whistles and features, part of it is just the evolution of the game. But man, it's just such a higher quality product now. So man, it's been a journey. There has been a lot that's happened over the last 10 years. But I think the next thing I wanted to share with you were some of the stats, because I think this is really interesting. It's like cool to reflect back on this. The show debuted on June 18th, 2015 with the Lori Lindsay. If you don't know who Lori Lindsay is, she was a player on the U.S. women's national team. She was a client of mine for many years. I got to write training programs for, and just an amazing human being. And I think one of the coolest things now is that, yes, Lori Lindsay is my friend and I got to train her, but now she announces like so many cool women's games. Like she was doing, what was it? The women's Euros, the semifinals and finals. I think she was announcing those. So it's just pretty cool to see her growth and evolution from player to now commentator. And she's just an amazing human. So love that. She had great stories. Whether it was her, another one that's slept on is a guy named John Welburn. And I had to go back and listen to this episode because there was some stuff that happened. I think he got delayed that night. I don't think we even started recording till like 8:30 or 9 at night. You know, sometimes at that point I was recording super late. You know, get the kids in bed. All right, it's like 8 o'clock. Now I got to record a show. And so for some reason we started recording late. It was like 8 or 8:30, maybe 9 o'clock. And John and I just hit it off. Like we were going and going and going. And then at the end, he starts telling stories because he played, I believe it was 9 years in the NFL. I mean, he was just telling these amazing stories. And the best was he was telling a story from when he played for the Kansas City Chiefs 2006 in the playoffs versus the Colts. Like I remember that game because I was there and it was so cool. So it's like stuff like that that's really cool in those memories that you just kind of build up over the years. But started, literally over 10 years ago. We're at 2.635 million downloads, right? That's crazy. Over 2.5 million downloads from 197 total countries. Dude, 3 more countries, man. I don't know. A couple countries, or you travel somewhere, download a show, see if that helps me get to 200. But that's pretty cool. Arguably the coolest stat for me, and I don't know if all podcast services track this, but Blueberry, the service that I use that kind of like hosts and stores the podcast and then pushes it out to Spotify and Apple Podcasts, all those different platforms, is what they call impactful plays. So Blueberry defines an impactful play as somebody that listens to at least 75% of the episodes. Now, here's what's really cool. 92% of the people that listen to the show listen to 75% or more. So that tells me retention is incredibly high. And if you're listening, you're enjoying the show and you're getting the most out of that guest. And look, the back end, some of it isn't like it's hard hitting, right? That's where we do our lightning round. We do the big question. Sometimes just the momentum veers or drops off a little bit at the end. That's normal. But 92% of the people that listen to shows listen to at least 75%, which I would consider the main part of the show. So I love that stat, and it just shows that people are engaged, they're enjoying the show, and they're getting a lot out of it. Now, here is another thing that I think is really cool. I wanted to go back and I was like, I wonder what my most popular episodes of all time were. So what I did was I went in and I recreated the list, right, from 10 to 1. And here's that list. I will put it in the show notes. So if you want to go back and listen to the 10 most popular shows, here's what they are. Number 1, Physical Prep with Joel Jamieson. Now, sadly enough, when I was just getting started, I thought I'm just going to list everything or name everything as Physical Prep with blank. Wow. I mean, you know what you're getting, but man, is it a bland way to name shows. So if you get a couple of those in here, that's why. But you have Physical Prep with Joel Jamieson at number 10. Number 9, Chris Chase on establishing standards and improving performance in basketball. That's an awesome show. Chris Chase, I think he's been on 2 or 3 times now. Always fantastic shows. And I will tell you, he and I had a podcast one year. Sorry, check that. It was not a podcast. It was a phone call. I was like, hey, we should get on a show. I think he was bored in Vegas. This was earlier on in his Memphis career. And he's like, hey, dude, it's summer league. I got all this downtime. Let's just get on the phone. And we had like an hour and a half call. I wish it could have been recorded because it was just the best stuff. And it was us kind of ranting about the state of the industry and what's going on in the basketball space and random shenanigans. But Chris Chase's shows are always fire. So I'll make sure I link those. And especially this one, because I love the idea of having standards, right? Having standards that you're kind of striving for with your athletes or with your clients. Physical Prep with Buddy Morris. Still remember this show. Literally, Buddy hates technology, like absolutely hates it with a passion. He had, I think, an intern set it up. The audio was kind of glitchy. Actually, this is the first time I hired Paul because it was like my 12th show. The audio was all over the place, kind of scratchy. There would be like these segments where it was like cut out, but then Buddy would be talking. So I don't know how Paul saved that episode, but it was literally for a long time the most downloaded show because I asked one question. In fact, I take that back. I didn't ask any questions. I think Buddy was just like, what are we going to talk about? And he just goes for an hour, literally talks for an hour. And then he's like, was there anything you wanted to ask? And I get a half of a question out. And then he goes for like 10 more minutes. And that was the end of the show. It's phenomenal. So if you've not heard of Buddy Morris or you've not listened to that show, that is definitely one worth checking out. Bill Hartman, probably pretty fitting that my business partner of 17 years makes an appearance here. But Bill Hartman on building a powerful and pain-free body after 40. That was fun. Pat Davidson on coaching, cueing, and building savages. Pat Davidson, man, love that guy. He is such a character and great at like entertaining while also educating, like super dumb smart, but he's very educating as well. So Pat Davidson, Dan John, another true OG from the T-Nation days. Dan John on how to dominate the weights for a lifetime. Number 4, Nick Littlehales on optimizing sleep to maximize performance. No pun intended. Very slept on episode. Nick Littlehales, I think, is arguably one of the best sleep experts in the world today. I know there are people that are maybe more celebrated. They have more popular books, but if you want like real world practical sleep information, Nick Littlehales is your guy. So check out his podcast, check out his book. I'll either link to that in the show notes, or if you go to his podcast, I'm sure it's already linked there. These next 2 are some of my episodes. 20 tips for young coaches. That one got a ton of great feedback, followed by 19 ninja tricks to help you write better training programs. The solo pods, I'll be honest, I kind of feel like a group artist that then goes out and does solo, work. Feels kind of weird in a way, but I've also gotten amazing feedback on my solo shows. So that's why I'm trying to do more of those and keep those in the mix. I love interviewing people. I love talking to other subject matter experts, but the feedback I get, and as well as like looking at my stats and the downloads, people really love the solo stuff. So I got to make sure I keep that up. And then last but not least, Physical Prep with Dr. Stuart McGill, the one and only Stu McGill. Man, he is, again, just like one of the world's foremost experts on backs, and feels pretty good to have him at the top of the list because I've always enjoyed our conversations. He's always been incredibly kind to me. And for a guy at his level who could definitely little bro people, I've never seen him do that. He's always been incredibly respectful of people around him and the people that want to learn from him. So those are the top 10 episodes of all time. One thing I don't know if you've noticed over the years, I have tried to find a broader mix of show types. And so one of the things that I love, again, I love the interview shows, right? Where I'm interviewing a subject matter expert, but I've tried to diversify that because I do feel like some of the same people get asked to do shows time and time and time again. Like if you're Stu McGill, how many podcasts are you getting asked to be on every single week? If you're Joel Jamieson, Eric Cressy, any of these brand names, like how many shows are you being asked to do every week? So while those are valuable, I've tried to kind of round it out a little bit. That's why I started doing my own solo shows. I do think there's value in those. It allows me to go a little bit deeper. It allows me to cover more ground too. So as much as I love writing articles, a 2,000 word article is maybe like a 20-minute podcast. I don't know. I've never tried to like read what I write, but I could only imagine if I had like a template or a script that I was reading from, it would probably only be 20 minutes versus if I can just riff for 40 to 45, 50 minutes on program design, on coaching, on kind of my frameworks for life and the things that I do to be healthy or happy or successful, I can just go so much deeper in a podcast than I can in an article. So I started to do more of those by request more than anything. I started to do the Q&A episodes. And those are a little bit more sporadic now. There was a time where I was doing those once a month and I found the quality of the questions started to decline. So I'll generally do those about once a quarter. And then something I started doing this year that I've really enjoyed, I haven't done one in a while, but I need to get back to it, are what I would call barbershop episodes. And part of it is it's a little bit harder show. Like if you got the right person, it's very easy. But it's finding the right people and kind of having an idea as to where the conversation will go and knowing that they're not going to say anything like totally off color. But I love those barbershop type episodes. So whether it was, I know I did one with Steve Calarco. I feel like I've done kind of like one or two with Andy McCloy because we've known each other so long. We think very similarly. And so that kind of brings out the best in both of us, right? Like I know things about them and the way they're doing things. They know stuff about me. So it's not just one directional where I'm just asking them questions. Like we're having a discussion and then Andy will be like, yeah, but what do you think about that, Mike? Or, hey, if you were in that situation, what would you do? So it just turns into more of like this back and forth organic discussion versus one of us just riffing for, 5 or 10 minutes at a time. So those are the top 10 shows. Those are the types of shows I'm running now. Lots going on with that. One other thing I wanted to make sure that I did here, and then we're going to get into a couple life lessons. But one thing I wanted to make sure I did here was give a shout out to my sponsors. Because as I alluded to, I don't think I had any sponsors until episode 350 or so. And again, that was intentional because I don't want to take you out of the experience. Like if we're talking about something and I'm interjecting with, hey, go buy this thing, or hey, go do this, it better be worth it. It better be from a brand that I know, like, and respect. And more importantly, something that I truly believe in. And so it took me a while, and you'll kind of notice like, hey, I started with one, then I added a second, but they were always people that I was lockstep in line with. So I got to give the first shout out to Hawken Dynamics. They are the best. Shout out to Drake and the entire team there. I love force plates. I love technology. I was super nervous to get started because it had been 20 plus years since I'd gotten that master's degree and I've been using force plates on a daily basis. But now, man, I can tell you it is a critical piece of our assessment process, showing athletes kind of where they're at, where they stack up compared to their peers. But then whether it's back end readiness training, whether it's helping me write better programs, really lock in like, hey, if I'm chasing vertical jump performance, if I'm chasing MRSI, if I'm chasing breaking RFD, if I'm chasing different metrics, now I can track week over week to see if I'm really getting the results that I want. So I absolutely love Hawken. They are the best. They sent me this little like form the other day, like, why do you love us? And I'm like, hey man, world-class materials, right? Like research grade force plates, like super high quality, an amazing team, a brand that's aligned with, kind of how I am, the fact that I could buy my plates versus leasing them. I own my own data. Like there were so many reasons, but I just kept coming back to like the people there have been amazing, whether it's Drake, whether it's Kat, Oliver. I've had so many great experiences with the team over there. They've been fantastic. So shout out to them. Train Heroic, something that I've used personally, I think for at least 5 or 6 years now. And it was one of those things where I'm an old school program guy. I still like the pen and paper. I still do a lot of my program like sketching and layout on pen and paper. Something about that just kind of helps me narrow in and focus, and there's less distractions. But when it comes to the actual writing and execution of the program, Train Heroic's where it's at. And I think next year is going to be the year where I'm 100% digital. Like 85, 90%. Some of my OG athletes that have been with me forever, they still like the pen and paper. But I'm just kind of at that point where it's just so much easier when it's all documented, it's all on the app. People are literally going through it in real time. It ensures they actually track and log their stuff. Make sure that they don't skip stuff like force plate jumps. Not everybody wants to do. a lot of my pros don't want to force plate jump once a week, versus my kids who want to, literally jump 3 to 5 times every day. But it just makes my life so easy. Plus the videos that are embedded in there, an athlete doesn't have to ask me every single week, hey, what's a split stance, low cable row? Literally, they can click it. As soon as they see the video, they're like, okay, boom, they can set it up. And it just makes everything that I do easier. So shout out to Train Heroic. They've been amazing. And not just for my online clients, but also for the programs that I have posted on there, because it gives me a new avenue to kind of get my programs out into the world. So whether it's the Everyday Athlete, the Strong for Life program, probably got a new one dropping here at the end of the year, but it's been great to have them as a resource. And shout out to Josh, who's been an amazing connection over there. Push Press, one of our newest sponsors, they've just really been game changing for me in the sense that, I'm just going to say it, we use MindBody for a long time. I don't feel like they did anything to improve their platform or their service. It was very stagnant. And when I was starting out iFast Basketball, I just kind of did everything in a very low tech kind of way. I wanted it to be easy. So I think everybody signed up through a Google Sheet. Literally I'd have, training slots, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 3 to 4 slots. Okay. Just book in at the time you want to come in. At the end of the month, I would track all those, add them up. I would bill. And it got to a point where it worked when it was a small batch of people, but especially over the last year or two, where I've been more intentional in my growth. It's been something where I am trying to scale, maybe not to a high degree, but I just want it to be easier, right? I don't want to take an entire Wednesday once a month to go back, make sure all my sessions are right, make sure everybody showed up for the sessions that they booked, make sure that the billing is right, creating invoices. I just didn't want to mess with any of that. And so we moved to Push Press, and wow, huge. My life is so easy now. Literally, people go in, they download the app, they buy sessions, they book into the sessions. I don't have to keep track of anything. All I do at the end of the day, make sure they're checked in and they're good to go. And here's probably the most, how do I want to say this? This is probably the best recommendation I can give is I've started it for iFast Basketball. So just like my private clients, and it worked so well, I ended up getting 2 more. One to tether to the gym itself, so we can keep track of, certain members that are still billed through there are independent contractors. So I got a second service for that, and I actually got a third for PT. So Bill and Eric's physical therapy, because it's such a great service and it's made life so streamlined, so easy for all of us. So shout out to Push Press. They are amazing. Jessica has been my main rep over there. And Paul helped me a lot with the onboarding early on. So shout out to them. Extrafly, even though that is not the same relationship now, they were one of my first sponsors. I still love the device, and I want to give them a shout out because it's a great product. They're under new, I don't want to say management. I think they actually got bought out by Dynamic, who is affiliated with the one and only Joe Ken. So if you want an amazing flywheel, the footprint there is the real sell, right? I know there's other flywheels out there, but it's tiny little spaces, not particularly useful. I've got huge human beings. And more importantly, not just are they huge, but I want to have variability in the exercises that I do. So whether it's squatting, hinging, split squatting, like the setup, yeah, we got to go at an angle, but we can do split squats. We can do rear foot elevated stuff. With the little horizontal attachment, we can do leg extensions. We can do leg curls. So there's so many options there. For me, the Extrafly, it's not getting used year round because that's not really the type of tool that it is. But man, for those 2 to 3 months out of the year when I need it for my off-season athletes, it is an absolute game changer. Love it. So shout out to Extrafly. And then last but not least, this is probably a great time to announce our newest sponsor, which is Anchor. If you followed my work for the last couple of years, I love cables. I love cable pulling exercises specifically. Great for opening up the thorax, the shoulders, creating space, just helping your athletes move and feel better, especially when so much of the work that we do in the weight room is compressive in nature, right? It ramps up that concentric muscle activity. We get squished. So we need those exercises that can help kind of recreate space and restore motion. So Anchor is the newest kid on the block. I absolutely love their cable machine. And it's something that I think is great because we don't have a ton of space at the gym. Like, we're quickly running out of space. I couldn't put in a huge dual cable column, even if I wanted to. Also, those things are dumb expensive now, like absolutely ridiculously dumb expensive. So if I want something that I can use in a smaller space that gives me like 90% of the outcome at 10% of the cost, Anchor is where it's at. So I think as we continue to grow and evolve as a gym, I'm just going to add more of those. You can tether them all over the place, right? Like, we've got them tethered to racks right now. We've got like these huge columns in the middle of the gym. We just have a bigger strap that we can tether it to. And then for me, when things aren't as busy, I'm going to bring it to my house because, there are days where I don't have, an hour and a half, 2 hours to like drive into the gym, talk to people, kind of work out, come back home, shower. It's nice to just go in my basement, get a little street pump in, and having a cable that works really well for like 500 some bucks, like, it's an absolute steal. So shout out to Anchor. I'm so excited to be working with them. And if you haven't checked out their stuff, I'll make sure I put a link in the show notes so you can check them out. I think kind of the preferred deal is something like $60 off. There's a sweet little deal if you follow my link and use my code. So definitely check them out. So again, shout out to all the sponsors. They help make the show run. I told you up front, like, it's not cheap running a podcast anymore. There's a lot of people that I have to pay. There's a lot of services involved. There's a lot of time involved. So thank you to all the sponsors who help make this possible. And again, 100% lockstep in line kind of with the way I run my business is how they run their business. So wouldn't be where I am without them. Thank you to you guys. And then last but not least, let me try that again. Last but not least, life lessons learned. And this is where this is a little bit hard because, man, it's been 10 years. And I think back to, 2015, who do we have? We had Obama. So we've had Obama, Trump, Biden, Trump again, not being political, just naming things. We had COVID. We have had a lot of life changes in the last 10 years. When I started this show, Kendall would have been like 4. Cade would have been like 1.5, something like that, 2 years old. Like, a lot has changed. And so it kind of makes you pause and reflect. And again, I don't want this to be the entire show. This is going to be more of a quick hitting segment, but some things that I learned that I think can potentially benefit you as well, right? One thing, let's just start with this first, like point 0. One of the things that I have learned is that I can never tell you what to do, right? But what I am more than happy to do is share my life experiences with you. Good, bad. I made mistakes, right? I've made more than my fair share of mistakes over the years. But what I always try and do, whether it's here, whether it's workshops, seminars, if I'm your coach, I'm always going to be 100% real and authentic with you. I'm going to make mistakes, but most importantly, I'm going to learn from those. So as I share these lessons, just understand I'm never like up on a pedestal. I'm not preaching from a pulpit. I'm just sharing things that I have learned that have positively impacted me that I think could potentially positively impact you as well. Cool. Okay. Number 1, setting expectations and boundaries. And as a reformed people pleaser, this is something I struggled with for many, many years of my life. I would commit to things that I knew I had no business doing, or things that maybe weren't in line with my values, things that I wasn't really excited about, or things that I frankly didn't have time to do. And so one of the things that I have tried to do over the years is just put some guidelines and put some boundaries around my life. And it's a little bit easier now, right? Part of it is just age. I'm older now, so I'm a little bit more clear on what's important for me and what moves the needle positively for me in my life. But furthermore, I'm at a certain point professionally where I don't have to say yes to everything. When you're getting started, you have to say yes to a lot. And part of that is, there is some FOMO involved. And part of that is just figuring out like, hey, what do I really like? What don't I like? And so that way over, the course of your career, you start to say yes to more things that you are excited about or that are in your wheelhouse, and you get to say no to things that you aren't excited about or that don't necessarily fit you. So one of the things that I've definitely done over the last couple of years is just set expectations and boundaries up front. So if I'm starting with a new online client, I'm going to say, hey, Here's how long we need to work together. Here are my rates. Here's my expectations, right? Like, I would love it if you would check in at least once a week. I would love it if you would send me videos. If you want a new program, you have to fill out this program design update form. If you don't, I am not writing you a new program. And it's hard because, the people pleaser in me, I want people to like me. I want to take great care of people, but I've also just come to the realization of I can't constantly bend over backwards to try and help people, right? Like, it's got to be a give and a take. I want to work with people that are professional, put that in air quotes, but like people that are professional, that want to get the most out of their training, that really value my time, and the work that I'm trying to do for them. So that's one of the most important things that I've done over the last 10 years. I'm very clear, setting expectations, setting boundaries. If you're coming on my podcast, if I'm going to interview, I'm going to set the expectation and boundary. Hey, here's what your audio should look like. Here's what your video should look like. I'm going to be professional in the sense that I'm going to send you questions beforehand. We're going to have a professional meeting place. I'm only going to keep you for 45 minutes to an hour. We're not going to drone on and on. And part of this is being on the other side of it, where I've been in these situations where I've tried to do somebody a favor, help somebody get their show off the ground, and they're not prepared, right? They're like basically in their basement, horrible lighting. They've not prepared. They're just, so Mike, talk to me, no forethought to the process. So I think one of the best things that I've done, and that you might consider doing as well, is just setting expectations and boundaries. Like, what's important for you? What boundaries do you need? And then how do you preserve that? And I would say, especially as trainers, as coaches, as entrepreneurs, we're almost always willing to say yes more than we should. And so that's where you have to be willing to say no sometimes, so that you're then saying yes to the things that are truly important to you. So that's number one, setting expectations and boundaries. Number two, getting really clear on the people that I want to work with. I would say over the last 10 years, and 10 years is a long time, but really kind of only like 1.5 people that weren't good fits for me. The half was just kind of like it wasn't a great fit. It was a little bit awkward. Part of that was a personality difference. And there was one guy that was just legitimately a pain in the ass. He just was not a good fit. I think some legitimate like mental health issues, some pain related issues. And so that didn't end well. And so what that did, again, going with my mantra of everything happens for a reason. Okay, well, why did I take that guy? Because I felt like I could help him. And I did for a very long period of time until he hurt himself again. But I took him because I felt like I could help. But it basically brought me back to like these two filters that I put everybody through. So if I consider that I'm going to work with you, and it could be you as an online client, it could be you as a client at iFast, there's two basic rules that you have to pass through to even get to that point where I'm going to train you. Number one, you've got to be a good human. And pretty sad to say, there's not a lot, but there have been a couple just really crappy humans that I've met over the last 17 years of running iFast, 25 years of coaching. There's some people I don't want to work with, right? Because they're not great people for, any multitude of reasons. But that's kind of the first thing. If you're not a good human, it doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. But that's number one. You got to be a good human. And number two, you got to have and be willing to work for real goals. Now, here's what I mean by that. A lot of times, especially as I've been in this pro training space for a very long period of time, right? Whether it was in the early 2010s when it was very much soccer focused. I had tons of pro soccer players. I'm working with the Indy 11. Then that morphed into where I kind of wanted to be, which was basketball, kind of like the last 9 to 10 years. So people kind of have this kind of stigma that I only train professional athletes until they come in the gym and they're like, oh, well, yeah, but you've got some high school and college age kids. Oh, your online clients are almost all kind of like Gen Pop people. Well, this is where I think the mindset has to shift, right? I consider myself as a coach of high performers. So high performers are people that just want to get the absolute most out of their body, right? And for athletes, it's easy because their body then translates to their sport. But for the other people I work with, a lot of my online people, hey man, they want to be like killer weekend warriors. They want to be able to play tennis at a high level, even though they're not like playing professionally. so to speak. They want to go and be able to like crush it when they go for hikes with their family, or when they go skiing for those big moments and those big memories with their family. Like, that's what it really comes down to for me. The people that I work with have to be good humans, and they got to have real goals. And again, that's not to say if we didn't work together, you're a bad person or I'm a bad coach. I don't think that's the case. It's just I've gotten very clear on the type of people that I want to work with in my career. And so I want to work with people that really want to move their own needle physically to unlock that next level of success. And that can mean any host of things for them. Maybe it's on a field quarter pitch, or maybe it's just being a better dad, a better husband, a better pickup basketball player on the weekends. So really trying to get clear on the people that I want to work with is something that's been helpful. Number 3, and I think this is a lesson I have to constantly remind myself, and I think this will be beneficial to a lot of people that are listening, getting away from this idea of just being busy or just doing stuff, and taking time to step back and really thinking about what's most important. And so I think one of the things that we can kind of do to distract ourselves these days is we can make ourselves feel busy, right? Like we're doing a lot of stuff. Oh, I'm crushing these emails, putting out social media content, like I'm having all these meetings. But then when you take a step back, you're like, yeah, but half these emails I didn't need to respond to, or I could have just deleted. Half of these meetings had no agenda, so they took 3 times longer than they should have. That's another story. I don't like long, wayward meetings. But like, just taking that moment to step back. Like, it's just like writing a program. Instead of just writing a program and then like, oh yeah, this is kind of what I wanted it to be. No, get really clear on, hey, what is the goal of this program? I've talked about this so many times, but what is the goal of the program? Get really clear on that first, and then that program is really easy to write. When I write an article, kind of what I start with is, what do I want you to learn? If I can put it into one sentence, why are assessments important? Why should you value assessments? Boom, that's the article. If it's a podcast, hey, you're going to learn as much as you can about jumps from Joel Smith. Great. There's our topic. Christina, we're going to talk about supplements. Those are just top of the mind. But just starting to get really clear on, hey, why am I doing these things? Like, what are my end goals? And that's one of the great things about this time of year for me. It's like, hey, I know I've got the Montana workshop coming up. I know my program design mentorship is about to kick off. I know I've got this mobility masterclass. So I have to zoom out and figure out, hey, what are all the things that I need to do to prepare for a workshop, for a masterclass, for my mentorship? Get it all in line. Man, sometimes it only takes an hour or 2, but just getting really clear on what the end goals are sets you up for now when you want to go into, spaz out productivity mode and start doing all the things. That's great. But now you've got a real playlist and a real action plan that actually moves you towards your goals. So that's another one that I think is super valuable. Stop just doing stuff to do stuff. Stop being busy to be busy, and start thinking about the things that will really move the needle forward in life. This next one kind of goes along with that. And this is something that I have to remind myself of. It's something I have to remind my clients and athletes of from time to time. But it's one thing to zoom out and to have that grandiose big picture plan. But more importantly, once you have that plan, it's having the plan and then being consistent in your approach. That's the real secret sauce in life, right? So, hey, if I want to get into amazing shape, if I want to get to 10% body fat, okay, cool. Set that goal. Now create your action plan. What do you have to do? Well, I know I have to train with weights 3 times a week. I'm going to do 2 to 3 conditioning sessions. I know I'm going to be 90% compliant with my nutrition. Maybe I'm going to hire a nutrition coach. And there's all these things. You got to have the action plan, but now you got to actually do it. You got to do the thing, and you got to stay consistent with it. And this is one of the biggest differentiators I've seen over the years, because I have been lucky in the sense that I see high-performing athletes. I've been around high-performing entrepreneurs, especially in the fitness space, people that are doing this at a high level, online, offline, in their gym. And I think whether we're talking about workouts, whether we're talking about business, whether we're talking about personal development, the people that are the most successful constantly go through this cycle. They have the big picture vision. They have a real action plan with actionable items, and then they are super consistent and diligent with the process day in and day out. And man, I think the easiest example for me are my athletes that are just super locked in the off season. A guy like Ed Sumner, right? I'm just going to throw Ed's name out there because this guy's been with me 5 days a week for probably the last 6 or 7 years. 5 days a week, every week. If Ed is out of season, he is with me. And you see the amount of successes this guy's had, right? I think he played 6-7 years in the NBA, went over, played a year in the Euro League for Žalgiris. Last year, he went to the Chinese Basketball Association and he led the entire CBA in scoring. It's even cooler. I just found this out via an Instagram post. He led the entire world in scoring last year. All the leagues, all the basketball that's played, he had the highest points per game, which is crazy. But it's consistency, right? It's showing up each and every day. And I was actually having this discussion with one of our trainers at the gym today, Kristen. She was like, hey, great to see you in here. She had just finished up with clients. She was working out. I was getting a workout in. I'll put that in air quotes because, man, I was tired, dude. Like the last couple of days, as I mentioned up top, Kenwood had stuff before school, right? She'd had stuff after school. So we were out late. We were up early. I had no energy. And I'm just not at that point where I'm going to try and just smash through it with more caffeine. So it was definitely a check the box workout. I just had to step back for a moment. She was like, hey, you said you've been busy and you've had a lot going on. It's good for you to get in here and get your workout in. And I was like, yeah, like good for me. Like, I'm glad I actually do that because I tell people to do that all the time, right? It's easy as a trainer or coach to be like, hey man, you showed up today. Like, good for you. I know you didn't sleep well, or, your baby's teething and you're not sleeping enough. Like, we're so quick to praise others, yet sometimes we're the slowest to praise ourselves. So yeah, good for me. I got that workout in, but that's the real sauce, right? Like, that is the real secret sauce, is being consistent in your approach. So find ways to try and bake consistency into your life. If it's meaningful, if it's going to move the needle in your life or in your business, find ways to be consistent in your approach. Okay. 2 more. You're not getting any younger, so start today. This was really highlighted when I started to actually get it back into the force plate space. And I'm having this discussion with Drake, and I'm having this realization of, dude, I've not touched a force plate in 20 years. And so I'm listening to him talk, and I start listening to the podcast, and I start reading the research again. I'm like, crap, dude. Felt like I was reading a foreign language. I'm like, man, but the worst part was I knew it before, right? In 2000 to 2002, that's all I was doing was reading research, trying to take it, parse it out, put it into something meaningful, using it to write my own thesis. I just had this thought, like, dude, I'm like 44, 43, 44 at the time. Like, what am I doing? Do I really want to do this? And then I started to think, yeah, I kind of do. I really do. And so that's where you have to realize you're not getting younger. That's okay. If it's important, if it's impactful, if it's going to move your life in a positive direction over the long haul, start today. And it reminds me of that old, I think it's like a Chinese proverb, but it's, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, right? The perfect world. If I want a big tree in my backyard, I planted it 20 years ago, or I planted it 17 years ago when we moved in. Well, when's the second best time to do it? Right now, because now it's going to start. And so that was kind of my thought process with the force plate thing. Hey, I don't know how long I'm going to do this. Probably a long time. I don't know how long I'll coach. I don't know what that I can't project out 10, 15, 20 years. But I know I want to be doing this for a long time. I know my brain can't shut off. I know I love learning about fitness and movement. And I know sports science is kind of the next wave and iteration of all this. So how can I start to learn the sports science side and marry that with the program design and the coaching and the stuff that I'm already doing? So just a little reminder, hey, you're never too old. Man, I know people in their 50s and 60s that are still out there trying to learn new skills, tackle new hobbies. So if that sounds like you, don't wait. Start today. And then the final piece, and I would say if you take any of them, this may be the most impactful, and this is something I always try and remind myself of, is that you need to work hard now, but don't expect the results until later. So what a lot of people do, they'll work really, really hard, right? They're like, oh, I'm so motivated. I'm going to get shredded. Da, da, da. They crash out, right? They work super hard, crash out, and then they stop, right? They want to start a podcast. So they drop 10 podcasts in 10 weeks. And they realize, oh my gosh, we've only gotten 100 downloads. And then they stop. They decide they want to be a trainer. They do the cert. They get in there, they train like 5 people. It's harder than they think. They're tired. They're not seeing the results that they want with their people, so they stop, right? That's not how this works, right? That's not how any of this works. Whether we're talking training, coaching, professional development, physique change, unlocking new levels in life, you got to work hard and you got to do it consistently. We see a theme here. You got to work hard consistently. But the real piece of all this, the thing that will really allow you to win over the long haul, is being patient. Knowing that, hey, those first 50 podcast episodes probably aren't going to be great. There's probably not a lot of people listening to them. But with each iteration, with each episode, every time you do this, you're going to get a little bit better, right? You're going to ask better questions. You're going to get more intuitive as to what the listener is thinking and what they want you to ask. You're just going to get better at your craft. Everything about it levels up in these small micro doses over time. But I think this is where most people kind of miss the mark, right? They're willing to work really hard in the short term. They're willing to make those sacrifices, but they're not willing to do it long enough. So again, it comes back to this idea. You got to work hard. You got to stay patient. You got to be consistent in your approach and delay that gratification. Know that it's probably not going to happen overnight. That's okay. Because if it did happen overnight, you wouldn't value it anyway. So find ways, stay consistent, just buckle down, right? I'm not like this like super hard ass person, hustle mentality, but like stay consistent, work hard, stack days, do that consistently over weeks, months, years, and ultimately success will come. All right, my friend, that does it for today. 500 episodes, man, it's crazy to even think about. And I just want to wrap all this up by saying thank you so much for being here. Whether this is your first episode, your 200th, your 500th, regardless of where you're at in this journey, I truly appreciate you taking the time to be with me here today. I'm renewing the contract, 50, 100, I don't know. We're just going to keep going because I still think there is more juice to squeeze from the fruit. There's still great people that I'm learning about. Whether it's bringing old personalities back, the Chris Chases and Joel Jamisons and Joe Kins and Eric Cressys, whether it's bringing them back, whether it's finding, the new coaches, the new trainers, the new therapists, the new nutritionists and dietitians that are out there that are doing great work, man, I'm still committed to this. So I can't thank you enough for your support. Again, whether it's week 1 or week 500, whatever it is, man, I truly appreciate you being here. And thank you so much for your support. So if you enjoyed this show, please, if you're not already subscribed, please go and do that right now. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Podcasts, it's there. Hit the subscribe or follow button, whichever. And number 2, I haven't asked for this in a while. I looked on Apple Podcasts, and I think Apple and Spotify, both, I'm at 4.9 stars, right? Give me a 5-star rating. And if you're on Apple, go and give me a review, because I'm like 3 short of having 200 reviews. And I just feel like that would be pretty cool. That's probably not going to move the needle demonstrably in regards to downloads or anything like that, but it would just be cool to have 200 reviews. So if you've listened to more than a few of these and you're on Apple, please give me a rating, give me a review. I would truly appreciate it. So my friend, as always, thank you so much for your support. Love and appreciate you. And we'll be back next week with our next episode. Take care.